up.
Real quick, I just got off the conference, Mental Health America conference. It's been going on this is the second day, and there's one more day. It is incredible. I encourage everybody in the Alliance to pay attention right after we get off of this meeting. And tomorrow, it starts, I think, at 6:30 tomorrow. I've been on since 6:30 this morning. So it's really valuable information that will benefit us tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Do you mind putting information about how people access that in the chat? So if folks are interested, they can locate it.
I'll try to figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon.
Also, if you sign up for it, they're providing their sessions recorded, I think for 30, 60, or 90 days. I don't remember which one, to be honest.
Awesome, Charlotte. Thank you. Any other brief announcements? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to the business. So the first thing that we need to do is pass our last quarterly meeting minutes, which occurred in March. Seems like forever ago. And so we use a consent agenda process. So essentially, what we are looking for is a motion to approve the March quarterly minutes and a second to approve them. If there's any discussion, we will hear that discussion. And if there are no objections, those will be considered approved. So is there a motion to approve the March quarterly minutes?
Gelly, this is Don. I move to approve the March meeting minutes.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I second.
Charlotte, thank you for the second. Any questions or discussion or objections about the March quarterly meeting minutes for the Alliance? Hearing none, those are approved. Thank you, folks. Okay. At this time, I want to introduce Jesus, and they are going to be leading us through some small breakout sessions talking about our Alliance's group agreements. Jesus, are you in the room?
Yes, I am.
All right. Take it away.
Yeah, hi. My name is Jesus, and as I introduce myself in the chat area, I use she, they pronouns, and I am the intern primarily for the equity side of the Oregon Alliance to Prevent Suicide, as well as an executive member of the statewide Systems of Care Committee. And I am going to be talking about the group agreements, which I will be bringing up shortly. So the group agreements are something that we've been working on for a while. And sorry, it's been kind of a long day for me, so I'm kind of blanking a little bit. We have, oh geez. I had like a whole thing planned out for this and my brain just isn't working. I apologize.
It's okay, Jesus. I think you're in very good company with this group, being Friday. I don't know, it's been a long week for me and probably a long week for most of you in the room. So you are in very good company.
Well, and probably unlike the rest of us, Jesus is coming off of an all-night shift and out of an equity meeting with the System of Care Advisory that she's already been at. So
yeah, my brain's struggling. So we've been working on these for a while, both in the equity group and in little meetings kind of in between groups, between Annette and I, and as well as I believe, I forgot who the other person's name is, but these are kind of what we have down, right? We have the first one being, we value being a community of care, reach in, reach out. The second one being, be in the growth zone, all teach, all learn. Challenge oppression and racism. Intent does not always equal impact, which to me has always been a really important one, because sometimes we say things that comes from a place of love or a place of, experience. And the way that we say it, even though to us feels like it's being constructive, can be kind of taken in a way that might not be the way we intended it. And it's always important to know that no matter the way that you intended it to be, the outcome is what's most important of the statement that is made. 5 being replace judgment with wonder, be curious, not furious. Basically, always, ask questions about things that you might not be totally 100% about, and or things that you feel you might not think you agree on. Ask questions about it, seeing if there's a common ground that can be said. Be aware of how much you are speaking, create space for others. Check for understanding. Speak your truth and be aware of the ways you hold privilege, and strive for suicide safer messaging and language. And those are kind of just the ones that we were able to agree on the most, I guess.
Thanks, Jesus. Jesus, is there any one of those that you are particularly interested in or want to speak to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 of them that kind of always stood out to me the most would be, number 4, intent does not always equal impact. And I think also probably 6, being aware how much you were speaking, creating space for others. I know I've kind of fallen into the sort of situation where something gets brought up that I get super passionate about, and I just start, for lack of a better word vomiting all my thoughts on a subject, and I just keep going until I am asked to stop. So,
Jesus,
kind of mindful of that, saying what we want to say in a way that is concise and respectful to the time that we have for everyone, right? And with the intent and impact one, I kind of touched on it a little bit when I was going through them, but being mindful of, the way you say things, though you might be meaning it from a place of, love and respect, might not always be taken that way. And it's important to acknowledge that our words have weight.
thanks, Jesus. That's great. And I just want to say one more word about who Jesus is, because they've been a really important part of our alliance for a long time and are an example of how we center youth and young adult voices. Jesus is a young adult who has just been an incredible leader for us. So thank you, Jesus, and Jesus working with us on an internship around equity. So what we'd like to do now is split up into small groups, and we just want to give you a chance to get to meet a couple of other people on this alliance. And also, we're approaching these group agreements as an experiment. We're going to be working with them over the next 6 months to a year, see how it's going. We'll do a check back in, because we're really in a process of learning together. So we will be putting into chat these agreements in your little breakout room. It might take a second for it to get into your chat just because of the mechanics behind the scenes. But in your breakout group, please introduce yourself, name if you're an organization or you're here with lived experience. And then we're going to ask you just to choose one of these that either interests you, that you think is really good, or one that troubles you, or one that you kind of really want to work on yourself. And we won't be doing report outs of this, but it's just beginning of us working with this material. And so we're going to do automatic. You're going to just find yourself in a room with a couple other people, and I will do that for about 5 minutes, and you'll get some chance to get to know a few folks, and then we'll come back together.
And with that, I didn't realize that we would have 15 breakout rooms to have the amount of folks you want in each one. And if I were to go into each breakout room and put the things in the chat, by the time I got to the last one, like the 5 minutes might be over. So I added them all to a Jamboard really quickly, and the link is in the chat. So if you could copy that and paste it, so that way you have that in the breakout rooms, that will be most helpful. Just again, because by the time I get to all of them, the room might be, time might be up. So there you go.
Thank you, Jen. So just
Thank you,
click
folks.
Click on the Jamboard link. You're not going to put me in one, right, Jen?
I think you were automatically put into one, but you don't have to join it if you don't want to. Because yeah, you're in room 16 with Avalon and Shannon.
Oh, I better join. I will.
Okay.
Meeting is being recorded.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Do we
Yeah.
have everyone?
We-
Yeah, Nat, go ahead.
We skipped over the videos. I don't know if you
We're
want to
gonna-
do them or not.
Yeah, that was my fault, trying to be mindful of
Take
time.
it. Yes.
Yeah, folks, before we're going to have our OHA partners speak with us a little bit, but before we do that, as you all know, May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and there were some amazing things that happened around the state. And we want to show you some of the work that was happening with folks here in this room that led these efforts. Special call out to Zev and other folks from Washington County and folks who may have contributed to these videos. So Jen, take it away.
Hey, so you seem kind of off lately, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything you need, I'm here. If you want to cry, I'll cry with you. I'm here for you.
Hola, últimamente yo te he notado un poco triste y agitada. ¿Hay algo en que yo te pueda ayudar?
Привет, мой дорогой друг. Я рад видеть тебя. С удовольствием посидим с тобой, выпьем по чашечке кофе, и жизнь будет прекрасна. Я тебя люблю.
Hey, I noticed that you haven't really been acting like yourself lately, and I wonder if there's something going on. I mean, it sort of seems like there could be anxiety or you've just been feeling really down. And I wonder if you would talk with me about it, because it's okay if you're feeling those things.
nagomba kubwira yuko je ndi ngaha ndi umugenzi ukaba ugomba umuntu yo kuvugana gusa ndi ngaha ushobora kumpa kumvugisha canke nkakubwira nk'abandi bantu bashobora kugenda kuvugisha kubera ndatahura yuko ubuzima bugoye cyane gose.
Hey, I want you to know that I'm here for you, that I hear you, that I see you, that anything you want to talk about, I'm here for you. Any time of the day, I am here.
I know you've been feeling down some, and I want you to know that if you're feeling blue, you should call me. I want you to promise me, please.
And then the last one.
There's going to be one more, folks, in Spanish.
Que
Qué bueno verte, hace tiempo que no nos veíamos. Nada más quería conversar contigo un momento, saber cómo has estado, cómo va todo, cómo te has sentido últimamente.
Hola, últimamente yo te he notado un poco triste y agitada. ¿Hay algo en que yo te pueda ayudar?
Desde hace tiempo he notado que no eres tú misma y te has visto un poco ansioso las veces que hemos hablado. Quería saber si quisieras hablar más sobre eso o si quisieras tener una conversación sobre lo que ha estado pasando. Estoy aquí para apoyarte.
Estoy preocupada por ti y por tu salud mental y quiero saber si tú estás bien.
So again, a really special call out to Zeb Braun, who's in the room today, and everybody else who was a part of making those 2 videos and many, many other videos happen. Oftentimes people ask about suicide prevention and how you measure prevention, right? And those videos are prevention. That is prevention right there. And it's so hard to measure the impact of something like that, but we know that those things make a difference. So again, thank you to everyone who had a part in making those amazing videos. And I don't know if Zev or Annette or Jen could put the links in the chat so people could have quick access to those. I know folks are going to want to grab those. Yeah. All right. We're moving on from this, right? This slide. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we have some of our OHA colleagues in the room today, extra OHA colleagues in the room today, Ashley and Chelsea. Many of you are probably aware that the Oregon Alliance wrote a letter to the Oregon Health Authority requesting that OHA make a public statement with a commitment and affirmation around LGBTQ+ youth and families. And the letter is on the screen in front of you here. A huge call out and thanks to the LGBTQ Advisory Committee for the Alliance that wrote this letter that made this happen. So thank you to everyone who was involved in that advisory group for making this happen. The letter was amazing. And more importantly, OHA is here to respond to that letter and actually has already taken some steps to respond to that letter. So Chelsea and Ashley, I will let you introduce yourselves and you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Thurstrup. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Interim Director of Health and Education at OHA, and I'm really pleased to be here with you today. Pass it to Chelsea to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Chelsea Holcomb. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Child and Family Behavioral Health at the Oregon Health Authority. And thanks for having us.
Great. So I'll just kick us off today by really extending such a heartfelt thank you for your commitment and your letter and for inviting us today for this meeting. We are very, very excited to speak with you about our commitment to LGBTQ2SIA+ youth and families and well-being. And on behalf of the Oregon Health Authority and Pat Allen and Steve Allen, our Behavioral Health Director, as well as Chelsea and Shanda, Hostetler and Jill Baker, myself, and just a host of others at OHA who received the letter and worked on a response. We just want to thank you for your letter and your call to action. I think it was very well timed and exactly what we needed to really have that push to make that statement. And so very grateful to all of you. I just want to start by saying that we're also very concerned about what is happening around the country. It's heartbreaking to see this national wave of anti-trans legislation and these other policies and practices that are really intended to harm, the well-being of our youth and families, particularly LGBTQ2SIA+. youth and youth of color. And it's really painful to think about how how our families in Oregon, our students in Oregon, our children and and everyone is really hurt by these laws and policies that are passed around the country in school boards and legislatures. And there is no place in Oregon. We want it to be really, there's no place for this in Oregon. We want to be clear about that. And we're willing to make a stand. And so Pat Allen, when he did receive the letter, immediately wanted to respond and react. And so we've been meeting together for several months with a kind of a cross-agency team at OHA to really discuss and respond to this anti-trans legislation. We came together really around sex ed, and this was showing up a lot in the spaces in schools where curriculum around sexual education is centering the experiences of LGBTQ2SIA plus young people, and there was a lot of pushback, right? And there has been pushback around the state, and so we've been coming together to really think about how we're responding to that and centering youth and youth of color at the heart of our response, because we really want to honor and recognize the resilience of our young people and the communities who support them. So I think your letter provided that prompt so that we could act as quickly as possible. So yesterday we sent out a press release, as Scully mentioned. We'll link to it in the chat so you all can see it, and then maybe it can get sent out in the meetings in the minutes as well. And it went to all media outlets as well as the governor's office, really outlining our commitment and our responsibility as a state agency to support and publicly commit to LGBTQ2SIA plus young people and their families during this challenging time in our country. And we coincided it, of course, with Pride Month, which is really that attempt to uplift youth mental health well-being, connectedness, and belonging, and provide that call to action to families and caregivers and community-based organizations who are meant to really wrap around our young people during this time, to provide that affirming, supportive, loving care to young people who might feel isolated as summer is starting and they're losing supports to schools. So the press release highlights, oh, thank you for pulling that up, highlights local, state, and national resources available for LGBTQ2SIA plus youth and families to really thrive as summer kicks off. We included the Family Acceptance Project, SMIRC, the Trevor Project, a lot of different resources that you'll be able to see when you get a chance to dig into it. And then it also demonstrates our commitment to work with ODE, Oregon Department of Ed, to align our cross-agency statewide goals related to youth suicide prevention, and then as well as the implementation of the LGBTQ2SIA plus student success plan. So there's a quote from our director, OHA director, Pat Allen, and then the ODE director, Colt Gill. So I'm going to pass to Chelsea to speak a little bit more about the details, and then definitely around the suicide prevention piece too.
Thank you. And I just thank you to the Alliance again for writing the letter. I think as Ashley said, and certainly this group knows even from the past, that sometimes a letter to our organization does allow us to get out of the chaos that we're often in with the amount of work that is happening, to really focus in on an intervention or a response or something that we need to do for the community. So I echo what Ashley said. It's really helpful way sometimes to communicate and make a request. So I just really appreciate how organized this alliance is. And it really, this is another example of how you all get incredibly important work done. And Ashley, I'd just like to highlight, Ashley really coordinated this response and did a really amazing job bringing in people from different divisions and the Oregon Department of Education as part of the response. So thank you, Ashley. Again, as you guys get to read it, it has a clear statement from Pat Allen, which is great. And actually, now that I know that we can coordinate this, there may be other future press releases with statements from our two agency heads, because I think it does set a tone for the whole state when this happens. One of the things that's been really focused for my unit for a while is that we do different surveys of youth and families, both through Medicaid and through the school health survey that we do. And so in the statement, you'll see that we pulled some of the data. And while this isn't the only way to bring youth voice to a statement like this, it is one way to really value their participation in some of the surveys that we do for one, and show that we're using it and we're listening to the voices that they provide through those surveys. So you'll see some of the data that we included in the statement, and then some of the combined data that is specifically calling out and highlighting the data that we have from LGBTQ to SIA plus youth and youth of color specifically, so that we're elevating and amplifying their voices as it relates to that survey. And again, I want to clarify that surveys are not the only way we want to include and elevate and amplify youth voice, but we really want to make sure that these surveys that we're doing in different areas of our system actually get looked at and used and amplified out to the community. So again, I think what we highlighted is the suicide, data that we do have around in eighth graders, 38% of this population contemplated suicide within the past year. And that's compared to 7% of heterosexual youth. And that among 11th graders, 44% of transgender or gender diverse youth also contemplated suicide, compared to only 18% of females and 10% of males. So those are really, this may be data that you all are maybe already aware of, but it's, I think it was important also to have that in the statement. So if people are saying, well, why is OHA highlighting this? Or, what is the importance or connection to suicide prevention? It is there. Yeah, so I think I might stop there because Ashley did such a good job of explaining it, but happy to answer any questions, or as you dive into it, receive feedback from this group as well to make sure that it met the intention and the ask from your subcommittee and the Alliance.
This is Kimberly. And while I really miss Ashley on AdPep, I gotta say, this brings a smile to my face and a huge sigh of relief. So outstanding. And thanks to everybody who toiled through this and made it happen. Just outstanding.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any other questions or thoughts for Ashley or Chelsea?
The only thing I'll add is that we'll have this in our newsletter as well in July to continue, because sometimes a press release is just that. And so we'll be able to, in different newsletters and other communication within the organization, be able to continue to amplify the press release itself, so it gets to more people.
Thanks. And I'll just add to that, when we've sent out press releases like this in the past, we actually, a recent one that I worked on actually did get picked up at a lot of different outlets. And so if we do receive some media around this, would it be helpful to send that over to Annette or Gali, or so you could send out to the group?
Yes, please.
The roundup in one place. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Well, and I just want to say, Ashley and Chelsea, before you leave, and you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, of course, but I imagine you probably have other things that you need to do with your day today. I just want to say that we, on behalf of the Alliance, we appreciate the partnership that we have with you all. And it's not just Chelsea and Ashley that we have a partnership with. We have many folks that we partner with OHA, and it feels like that partnership is growing and getting more and more solid, and the foundation is getting even more and more secure. So on behalf of all of us that are involved in this work, we appreciate being able to punt a letter to you all at OHA and for you to respond in the way that you did. This is not the first time that we have written a letter to OHA, and OHA has acted. So we appreciate you and the advocacy and championship of very, very important issues. So thank you very much for the work that you do as well. Any other comments for Chelsea or Ashley before we move on?
Hey, Gally, this is Julie Majors. If I might.
Yes, go for it, Julie.
Ask a question of the OHA team. First of all, thanks everyone on the Alliance for prodding with this letter and calling this out, as well as the incredibly positive response and responsive action on OHA's part. And I lived in a suburb of Portland for 30 years. And recently, in the past several months, moved to a rural town here in Oregon, and am experiencing firsthand the attitudes, fears, concerns that are being expressed by those who I feel are coming from a very fearful and uneducated perspective. And especially after the recent school shooting in Uvalde, there's so much embedded in that attitude and belief system that I'm curious if there's a way that folks can be engaged through some of these surveys. What are your barriers to wanting support in schools for LGBTQ to SIA plus youth? Because there's so much misinformation. And so I'm just planting a seed that engagement of folks who are not in support and understanding the concerns and the risks and the needs for connection and acceptance. How do we reach them? I don't think we can just alienate them. I see I'm a minority here now in this more supportive thinking toward everyone. So it's kind of a question, kind of a seed planting. And then, if anybody wants to kind of brainstorm, I'm happy to share thoughts. I don't have any answers, but, certainly some thoughts. Just wanted to put that out there.
Julie,
Thank you,
this
Julie.
is Kimberly. And for me, also a small rural community member who sees so much, it all goes back to safety. And here in Jefferson, our youth are not safe, regardless of the school bullying, anti-bullying policies that are crap. Sorry, calling it out. Not necessarily in Jefferson County, but throughout Central Oregon. There remains so much work to be done, but that right there is the underlying question.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah, and just to add on, I want you to be able to move on with the meeting, Gally, but wherever needed. But I also want to say that this group did a really fabulous job at reaching over the aisle to gun rights proponents and this suicide topic. I think we did a really good job at reaching out to those who might have different perspectives, different cares, concerns, and different ideas of safety. And I think this is another area in which we might need to kind of focus our attention on reaching across and out and over rather than villainizing people who have reasons, albeit whatever they are, for their concerns or fears.
Is there, just for the sake of time, because this is a very, very important conversation, and I feel like as the facilitator, I'm always trying to balance, like, when do we move on and when do we continue to hold space for really important things? And they're also important. So it's these competing priorities. For our OHA folks, just, Chelsea and Ashley, looking at you folks today, like, is there an opportunity for the Alliance to directly be involved in some of these conversations? I know Annette just put in the chat that Ashley is going to have a follow-up conversation with Caitlin Ryan, who is from the Family Acceptance Project. Is that something, Ashley and Annette, to put you on the spot, is that something that Alliance members could come to if they, if they wanted to be involved in this conversation? Like, is there a way to actually, not just talk about this, but to actually do something about this? How do we get involved?
Yeah. I say the more minds, the better, the more the merrier. That's really my approach. So would love to have Alliance members engaged. I'll say that, in OHA, we've pulled together a group of folks who are really looking at this issue kind of across the state, like as incidents are bubbling up in school districts, primarily around sex ed. I think that there's a lot we can do maybe together if we're bridging some of our work, where there tends to be flashpoints, and there tends to be organizing maybe from an area or a sector of parents or individuals who are really not aligned with equity goals, right? So I just want you to know we're paying attention to it. And I think our response right now is really, how do we support our folks who are working within schools and school educators themselves in having all the data that they need and the support that they need to really back up their messaging and bridge as best they can. I think I'm really excited to talk about the Family Acceptance Project, because I think that's a great way to really reach in to families who maybe are not working as actively as they could be to support their young people. So that's not really a great answer, but I would just say that I'm always open to talking with all of you, and I know Chelsea and others from our team are as well. So we really want to work in partnership.
Yeah, and Gally, I would just say for that conversation with Caitlin Ryan, it would be great to have one or two people, maybe somebody from our advisory, and if there's like you or someone else wants to do it, but I think what I'm here, there's a whole lot of people on the Alliance really interested in this issue, and so I think maybe out of that initial conversation with Caitlin, we can come back and say, here's some of the ways for us to engage with that really important issue about how do we communicate this to the communities that actually are most likely to exhibit behaviors that they may think are protective of their children, but we know are actually putting their lives at risk.
I would just add, poor Gally, I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, go.
I guess one last thing I would say is that this is really an opportunity to elevate the youth and young adults that have been part of the Alliance and have them help and direct and coordinate. I know, and Nakobe, who used to do a lot of work with our other advisory council and others, now works at the Oregon Health Authority, yay. And they may be a helpful, I know they were involved in creating the statement and did a lot of work when they were working at Youth Era around engaging LGBTQ youth across the state from rural areas. And so I think, anyway, not that she has a different role now, but I think, anyway, I just wanted to elevate that because we're talking about youth. And so it would be nice if we found a way to elevate and amplify and have them help direct sort of next steps.
I think what I'm going to suggest is that we, for the meeting that is with OHA and Caitlin Ryan, that Annette can coordinate, our LGBTQ advisory folks, someone from that meeting hopefully can attend that meeting with Caitlin and OHA, and, maybe another individual from the Alliance if they would like Annette is saying, kind of keeping it small. So if you're interested in attending that meeting, send Annette or Jen an email, or just put it in the chat really clearly what you're asking for, because we copy the chat so we have it. And then Annette and Jen can, as our amazing staff, can kind of figure out who can attend this meeting. And then, I'm assuming that from that meeting, there will be some action steps that the Alliance can take and some things that we can do. This conversation is far from over, and there's lots of work to be done. And there are 55 of us in this room today, virtual room, which means that we represent all different parts of the state. And so we really count on you all as Alliance members and affiliates to be able to carry this work forward. So I will, I'm going to propose that we close this conversation for today and let the people who are having the conversation, these micro conversations, kind of come up with some action steps and to come back to us as a larger group and think about what steps we can take as individuals in our respective communities, and then also as a larger group. Does that sound okay to folks? I'm seeing people nod. Okay. Okay, once again, this is where the impact of this group really does have value, that we rely on you all to carry this torch forward and to communicate this really important issue. So thank you again for being a part of the Alliance, because this is how we get stuff done, folks. This is how it happens. So Chelsea and Ashley, thank you once again for being here. We appreciate the partnership beyond words. And thank you for all you're doing to champion this issue and advocate for our young people who are greatly at risk. We appreciate you. All right. I am going to take a moment to officially welcome our new Alliance members. There are 17 individuals, folks, who are now joining the ranks of this already amazing group of humans. So for those of you who have been a part of the Alliance for a little while or for a while now, we have 17 new humans that are going to be joining our ranks to carry this work even further forward. And on the screen ahead of you are the 17 amazing humans that are going to be joining us. So welcome to all of these folks. It's a great problem to have, to say that I can't read everyone's names. We don't have time. That's a great problem to have. But again, we appreciate everyone who applied, everyone who is here today, people who are not here today. We still appreciate them. A reminder to new Alliance members that you have not officially been appointed by Oregon Health Authority, so you don't yet have a vote, unfortunately. That will come. So when we take a vote, you won't be able to actually vote yet, but you will have a vote as soon as you are officially appointed by the Oregon Health Authority. So again, welcome to folks. We appreciate you being here. And if there's anything that our new members want to say about themselves, funny or serious or whatever, we welcome that in the chat. We always love getting to know our new faces and new members. So if there's anything, anything you want to share that's you think we might get a kick out of, this group is pretty informal and likes to laugh a lot. So please share whatever you'd like in the chat, serious or funny or whatever you'd like. But welcome, appreciate it. All right, I am going to hand it on over to Donna Marie Drucker, who is part of our Lethal Means Advisory Committee and the president and co-founder of the Oregon Firearm Safety Coalition. And she is going to be giving us an update on the Lethal Means work plan. The Lethal Means group is one of our advisory groups, excuse me. We have committees and we have advisory groups. The Lethal Means group and the LGBTQ group are our advisory committees. And the other groups that we have are just actual committees. And there's some confusion around that we're trying to clear up for folks. But Donna Marie, you have the floor. It's all yours.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get going. How are we doing from time? How far behind are we? Oh, I'm going to admit.
I think that we are totally okay. Annette and Jen, can Donna Marie take the 30 minutes that she was allotted?
I think it's a really important issue. I think that the open house time is a little flexible in the vote at the end. So yeah.
Okay.
So Donna Marie, you have until 10:55.
Okay. Okay. And most of that time will be for questions. We want to leave time for questions. So
perfect.
All right. Okay, can people see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So my name is Donna Marie Drucker, and I am one of the co-chairs on the Lethal Means Reduction Advisory Group. My other co-chairs are Jonathan Hankins and Pam Pierce. We are going to be talking about firearms and suicide and other lethal means that can be pretty emotionally activating. So even though we all do this work, sometimes we need support. Jen, if you could please put the Lifeline number in the chat. I would like to make sure that everybody has access to that. And at the end, my phone number will be up, and I'm always available to talk with people if anybody needs to process what we've been chatting about.
As am I, Donna Marie. This is Gally. I'm happy to hold space for anyone who might need it.
Yeah, because this is heavy stuff, you know. And so the first thing I want to do is to say thank you to all of our Lethal Mean group members. We have had a lot of really productive conversations. We've been doing a lot of great work, and these are heavy conversations. And I can't tell you how much myself, Pam, and Jonathan appreciate you showing up and sharing your experiences, sharing your time, and doing the work. And a big thanks to the Alliance and to Jen and Annette. We have been putting together this amazing work plan that you will all be getting access to. And this is basically an overview of what we've been doing and the work that we have ahead. And at the end, we're going to leave plenty of time for debriefing and questions. What we look at as a group are the three most lethal means for suicide, which include the leading means for suicide is firearms, the second is hanging and suffocation, and the third, poisoning and overdose. And we're going to kind of go through those in reverse order. We're going to be starting by discussing poisoning and overdose, and I'm actually going to have my co-chair Pam Pierce unmute and discuss this, as this is her area of expertise.
Thank you, Donna Marie. Pam Pierce. My expertise is that I'm a person in long-term recovery. And I have been looking at substance use prevention now for probably 10 years. Because my ultimate goal is to make sure that people have the information they need to protect themselves. And so with regard to poisoning, overdoses, and opioids, the opioid overdoses and intent in our group, we're trying to better understand the intersection between substance use and suicide, because drug use is a high-risk behavior, and it's often classified as passive suicidal thought and ideation, where most people that need the support never come in contact with it, with the mental health system. And so it makes it very, very hard to accurately determine related suicides. And the answers aren't straightforward. And because of this, it's likely that there is significant undercounting of the suicide rate among opioid overdose deaths. And the implications of not having the accurate information means we are missing opportunities to match people with the support that they need. Based on all of the information that Oregon currently has, looking at data collection, OHA sends out a monthly update and presentations. We've asked various community member leaders that are focused on the overdoses and to come and present to our group so that we can make the recommendations, like having Narcan test strips available, education in schools, data collection in schools, and to make sure ultimately that we're not duplicating services across Oregon. So we're kind of acting as, I don't even know the word, but to make sure that, again, that services aren't duplicated, that people understand, so that we can make the process quick so that people can get the help they need.
Thank you, Pam. And I think just like to really highlight this, that with overdoses, it's so difficult to know what the intent was. Was this an attempt of suicide? Was this purely accidental? And we truly believe that there's more intent around suicide than is ever counted. So this is an area that we absolutely need to be focused on. Let's see. So the next area that we have started to look at this year in particular is hanging and suffocation. It is the second leading cause of death for suicide. This has been a really difficult one. I'm going to say this was a really heavy subject for us to be having conversations around, mostly because we've become to realize that it's so difficult to actually reduce access to means, especially in the home. If you're at a facility, they can remove everything, shoelaces, shoes, you can, have beds with no sheets on. In the home, where we're really trying to protect youth, there's so much access to means. So we've kind of been taking a different approach. If we can't reduce access to means, then we really have to take a very strength-based protective factor approach. So we've been reviewing a lot of research. We've been having a lot of presentations by community experts, people that work in emergency rooms, trying to see what information that they're passing to parents. And we really think that taking this protective factor approach so that our youth can have access to support is really where we need to be expanding. We've been looking at development of apps such as the First Step app, which connects youth immediately to like the youth line and to other supports in their area, thinking about sources of strength training approach, like how important that is to connect youth to their communities and really enhance and focus on protective factors. In this area, I'm going to be completely honest, we have a lot to learn. We definitely don't feel like we're anywhere close to being able to make strong recommendations, but we are going to continue to learn so that we can move forward and start to bring in some recommendations for across the state to really focus on those protective factors and try to reduce this means of suicide. The bulk of our work is around firearms. Firearms account for probably more than 50% of all fatal youth suicides in Oregon. So we absolutely need to focus a lot of the work on this means. And there's a lot of work being done. And I want to acknowledge that, a couple of years ago, the Alliance funded focus groups with rural firearm owners. And through those focus groups, we got a lot of amazing information that has helped us connect with the firearm community. So everything that you're seeing that is being worked on is because we took the time to do this research, and the research produced actions that have worked. And because they're working, we've been able to make a lot of headway. Stuff that we're doing and that is in the work plan is ongoing is that we are actively working with gun clubs and gun ranges throughout the state to provide suicide prevention education to new members, having firearm QPR classes. This includes discussing safe storage, especially if you have youths in the home. Like we always have this focus. We discuss the risks of youth and firearms, the rate of suicide, and we are always very honest and explain that most of those firearms come from the youth's home. And I can tell you, when we explain this to firearm owners, you see their faces. They are getting an understanding that that is something that they would never want to happen in their home. We also have talked a lot about removing firearms from the home, which is something that the firearm community is actually really in favor for, especially when they have an at-risk youth in the home. So to make those things easier, we have been studying the transfer laws and the safe storage law. There was a safe storage law, SB 554, that came in to effect in 2021. We're working to clarify this law so that people can have a better understanding of what it means to have safe storage in your home. And then there is a special transfer law in ORS 166.435 section F, which means that you can transfer well, it's not a transfer, you can give your firearms to a third party if you are in immediate risk, or if somebody is in immediate risk at your home of injury or death. and then they return the firearms to you once that risk is no longer available. And what we're trying to do is there's this whole issue around liability. What happens if I give the firearm back? What constitutes safe storage? So we're really trying to work to clarify a lot of these laws so that we can give clear information to firearm owners so that they feel that they can be acting within the law. I did see in one of the packages that was sent out when we were talking about this, there was some comments where people wanted to make sure that, you know, getting clarity around these laws did not interfere with background checks. Nothing that we're doing interferes with background checks. Background checks are a law unto themselves. This law for giving your firearm to somebody if you're in crisis or if you have a youth in crisis already exists in Oregon, as it exists in many states, and it really is there to save lives. And we don't want to mess around with that. We want to make sure that people can get firearms out of their home. We want to make sure that they're returned when that risk is over. And we also want to make sure that our background check law is fully in place, because that saves lives in many other ways. We are also working with the Democratic Party of Oregon gun owning caucus right now to create what is called a safe harbor law. This is a law that was just passed in Louisiana, and Washington State also have a very similar law. And this sort of goes along with the idea of getting firearms out of the home, because we want to develop off-site storage so that firearm owners can maybe go to their local gun shop and give them their firearms to hold while something is going on in their home. Maybe they have a youth in crisis. But our gun shops are resistant in holding firearms because they're terribly concerned that if they return the firearm and then somebody hurts themselves or kills themselves with it, are they liable? So what we've been doing, we've been looking at what other states have been sort of creating, and we're working with a lot of like really amazing community partners, especially the veteran affairs folks, because our veterans have firearms in the homes, they have youth in the home, they're at risk for suicide. So we really want to create a law for Oregon that makes it easier for people to get firearms out of the home, to create this time and distance. And again, whatever law we come up with that we start to write in, it will not affect background checks. We're actually trying to work to make sure that we keep everybody safer, that we do not create more loopholes. We're also in tandem, even though we're trying to create the safe harbor law, we are not waiting for that to happen to create offsite storage. So we are actively working with gun clubs, with gun shops throughout the state to learn how we can create a system for there to be offsite storage available in every county, especially our rural counties. And then as we're getting people to sort of agree to store firearms, we're at the same time creating a map that can be accessed online. Because we want to make sure that if I have a friend, so I live in Clackamas, if I have a friend in Josephine County, I can go online and look at a map and be like, hey, go over to Sam's gun shop, they hold firearms. So, you know, we want to make sure that this is accessible to everybody all the time. At the same time as doing that, we know that as we're connecting with the firearm community, we're learning that there's a lot of communities that actually have these services available. We just don't know about them because they're just services that people provide, and nobody has ever asked them at a larger scale what they're doing and how they're doing it. So we're in the work of collecting data throughout the state. We have a couple of surveys that we're going to be sending out to all the suicide prevention coalitions and all the counties to try and understand better who is providing offsite storage in their communities. Are they willing to be part of our larger map? So doing both, learning what is already available and trying to create more storage options. And again, as we're doing that, working to create these safe harbor laws and working to really understand safe storage and all of that, because so many people have questions. So the next thing that we're working on is, as we're gathering all this information, is to develop frequently asked question material around firearms and firearm storage, firearm law. So when we're connecting with gun owning families, we can say, hey, if your kid's having a hard time, put this cable lock on your firearm, have a buddy, you can give it to this person, and that's completely legal. We want to make sure that we're giving people good information, and to do that, first of all, we have to make sure that we understand that information first. We are working with community partners across the state, including suicide prevention coalitions and gun clubs. We're really trying to develop statewide consistent messaging. Again, we're seeing that there's a lot of little pockets where different groups are doing different things. We want to try to coordinate all of those efforts. Trust is a really big thing in the firearm community. We know that if everybody is hearing the same message consistently, we believe that we will be building trust, and that the firearm folks will be more likely to be acting on the messaging that we're providing them. There's also been a number of lock boxes that have been given out to folks across the state, and we're trying to really do a lot of research on who has them, how many have been distributed, who have they been distributed to, and how can we expand on this? We're trying to figure out if it is primary care physicians that are handing out the most lock boxes. Is it schools that are handing out the most lock boxes? Are there gaps where people are asking for them constantly and we're not being able to provide them? Is there somebody that has a whole stockpile of them because nobody that they're offering them to is taking them? So we really want to understand this idea about giving these secure devices to people and figuring out how we can capitalize on what is working and understand what isn't working, so that we can make changes in that and really get them into as many people's hands as possible. So that's the work that we're kind of working on, but there is a lot more work that we need to do, like a lot more work. We've had an amazing couple of years, but there's still a lot of things that we're working on and thinking about and having conversations around. A lot of, there's been a massive increase in firearm sales. Between 2019 and 2020, firearm sales increased by 64%. That was the highest increase in 20 years. And 20 years ago, they started, with the background checks, so we were able to start to document how many firearms were being sold. This is a massive increase. And 40% of those increases were to first-time firearm owners. And I can see that I've duplicated my words here, so I apologize for that typo. But so we have more firearm owners than ever before, and firearms are in homes of people that in 2018 probably thought they would never own a firearm. And that's a big deal, because we don't know if these people are getting that firearm safety training. Are they going to clubs? Are they going to ranges? Are they, connected with anybody? Or did they just, through the fear of what was happening, did they just buy a firearm and now they have access to it in their home? What we did see, and we kind of knew this would happen, even though I really wished that I was wrong. If there was anything I'd want to be wrong about, it was this. In the year between 2019 and 2020, there was a 31% increase in youth firearm suicide. So again, I can see another typo. I was up late doing slides too, so I feel you there. So we're seeing a direct relationship, a massive increase in firearm sales, a huge increase of first-time firearm owners, and a huge increase in youth firearm suicide. And that is just something we have to address. We've done a great job of starting the work, but there's new work that needs to be done. Some of the stuff that we're having conversations around is that we need to be making sure we're having conversations with parents and their youth around how they're storing their firearms in their home. We know that there's a safe storage bill, but that is not wildly advertised because the law is not actually finished yet. The Oregon State Police still have to write what safe storage is, and because they haven't done that, most firearm owners that I speak to don't even know that the law exists. So we have to do work there. We have to discuss with people what safe storage is. We have to let people know about the risk of youth in the home and suicide. I was at one of the largest gun clubs in Oregon this week, giving a training around firearms and suicide to their board of directors, because I want to make sure that we're bringing that prevention to their gun club. They agreed, which is a good thing. But when I told those folks, yeah, it was a good meeting. When I told those folks that suicide is the second leading cause of death for our kids, and that most of those deaths, over 50% of them, involve firearms, and that those firearms come normally from the home of the parent or somebody that they know, and that so many kids know that they can have access to a loaded firearm within 24 hours, their faces went white. I can tell you that the firearm community want to make sure they are restricting access to firearms to their youth. We just have to get the training to them. And a couple of ways that we can do this is there's an amazing training called Hunter Safety Training that used to be readily available in schools, especially in our rural area. It has since kind of been defunded a little bit and is now an online course that you can take. We're really looking at bringing that back into schools, because that's a way where you connect with both the caregivers and the youth, discussing firearms, firearm safety, suicide prevention, and safe storage. And I think that's a perfect opportunity to be educating parents, to be giving out storage devices, and really even like that suicide prevention. People need to know the risk of having a firearm in your home and how that increases the risk of suicide for everybody in the home. There's also the Kids Safe Foundation, which is based out of Oregon. Derek LeBlanc has been doing amazing training for the last 5 years with youth and family around how to safely handle firearms, but also how to safely store firearms. Derek's work is now being recognized on a national front, and they are definitely somebody that we should be looking at to, again, the more people we can get educated, the more storage devices we can get out to families, the more lives we're going to save. Demographics of firearm owners has changed. It is, like I say, there's been a tremendous increase in firearm sales, which means that there are folks owning firearms that historically have not done so in the past, which includes women, our BIPOC community, our Latinx community, our LGBTQ+ community. We opened this meeting talking about the acts of aggression and violence to our LGBTQ+ community. They want to protect themselves. So because of that, they are purchasing firearms, which means we need to be creating suicide prevention efforts designed specifically for these communities. We are currently working with Clackamas County, developing suicide prevention materials specifically for our Latinx community and firearms. We are hoping that once we sort of roll that out, we can expand it to many different areas. I wish I could do it all at once. Everybody knows that I would take on everything just to be making this difference, but we have to start with one thing, do it really well, and then hopefully come up with a formula to really create materials and like videos, just like Washington County did for all our different communities. And I'm going to do an activation warning here. Because there's been a lot of stuff in the media and the news, there's been a lot of mass shootings, and I'm going to address some of that right now, because we also have another area that we have not been looking at as much, and that is violent suicide. That is where people go in and create and do horrible acts that they know that they're not going to survive. There is more and more research that shows that a lot of the mass shootings, especially by our youth, they know they're not coming out of it alive. So it is an act of suicide. And I feel that the Alliance needs to sort of look at this a little bit. And there's a couple of areas that the research is available right now. This is a new thing. I hadn't really been considering this very much, but there's been a lot of research that's coming out, and there's the idea of contagion. We are very careful how we report suicide in the media, because we know that it can, I will use the word inspire, I don't know, it can be contagious. It can lead to other suicides. When there was the shooting in New York, in Buffalo, I knew that there was going to be another event quickly, and that happened. And that is because of this contagion. It inspires those people that are on the edge to consider these other acts. And that is something that I think that we need to be looking at. All of these acts are also committed by males, and we're now seeing very young males, youth, young male youth committing these acts. So we need to take a strong look at male mental health, including isolation, the vulnerability, and there's also this strong connection to white supremacist ideology. And Oregon has a lot of white supremacist groups. So I am closing. I know that was a heavy thing to close on. What I want to say is that we are still learning. We have a lot of work ahead. We have a lot of hard work ahead, but we are doing it. We have made tremendous progress, and we're going to keep forging ahead with this work. And again, my name is Donna Marie Drucker. I am the co-chair of the Lethal Means Reduction Work Group or Advisory Group or Committee. I don't know where we're going to end up. I'm also the president and co-founder of the Oregon Firearm Safety Coalition, and I'm happy to talk to any of you anytime about issues related to firearms, suicide, anything else. And if there's anything that I have spoken today, activates anything, please reach out, whether it's to the Lifeline, to myself, or to any of these other amazing people that are in this room. And now I'm going to open the floor up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Donna Marie, thank you. Dr. Wolf, you have your hand raised. Go ahead. Kirk? Okay, we're going to go with Kimberly then. Kimberly, go for it.
So I am working on a see something, say something campaign that provides accurate information on common risk factors for active shooting. Part of that is based on, again, personal experience. My teen was threatened last week. And part of it is from my work with the school threat assessment team that I participate in. And we are a very pro-gun, anti-everything else, but pro-gun county. And I just think it's imperative to educate youth and adults on what are the warning signs, what are the risk factors, what are we seeing, what are the common cues, and really do a comprehensive awareness campaign. So I just wanted to toss it out there that I'm working with Safe Oregon because they have a lot of activity, they have the immediate response capacity, but Gordon pointed out they don't have a lot on suicide prevention. If anybody wants to help me out with that, I would just love the help. Just private message me or email me. Just wanted to put it out there though, because I think this is a huge concern. Great presentation.
Thank you. Hey, Jen, maybe we could invite Kimberly to one of our Lethal Means meetings. And I'm trying to look for you, but there's so many.
That's okay.
On the screen.
My camera's off too, so you're fine. But yeah, I think Kimberly, I welcome Kimberly everywhere.
Wonderful. Then maybe we could discuss that further, Kimberly, how we could collaborate, because I think it's an area that we absolutely need to be focusing on.
I would be more than happy to participate. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions? There's some stuff in the chat that I'll read in just a second, but any other questions on the floor here?
I have a question. Sorry, I can't figure out how to get my hand raised on.
Yeah, Mary, go ahead.
Two things. I know Kimberly, on most of the school's threat assessments, I run our threat assessments for our district. We do go into depth, asking about suicidality of the kids making threats. And then also on the school district screenings, we also ask about thoughts of harm to others. So we can have that cross-reference. I just wanted to make sure that was a part of your threat assessment process too. And I'm more than happy to talk with you, Kimberly, if you want to send me an email, we can talk more about how to do that. And Dr. Wolf, I was just curious if you could elaborate more on your comment about males in depression.
I don't think his microphone is working, which is the
darn.
problem.
Okay. That was my comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Callie, he has a couple things in the chat that he wrote.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So Dr. Wolf, his microphone is not working, so I'm going to do my best to, he wrote in here, I'm going way back up here to where he said, with male mental health, it's important to be specific, significant depression and other major mental illness. And then Mary, you asked him to elaborate on that. The point on significant depression and other major mental illness, let's say, yeah, Kirk, this is hard for me to, the other thing is, let's be sure and keep in mind how important substance use can be with violent suicide. So that intersection that Donna Marie was talking about in the very beginning, and Pam was talking about in the very beginning of the intersection between substance use and suicide.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a lot to learn about. So we take, anybody that wants to come and talk to us and tell us more about this so we can learn more is absolutely welcomed and encouraged to do so. It's something we now need to address. I feel like that this is an area that is a very real part of our world. And I believe that it also needs to be part of suicide prevention.
And for the new members in the group here who are looking at like what committees or advisory groups you might be interested in joining, at the end of today's meeting, before we close, there'll be kind of an open house for you to kind of get a taste, although we're running out of time, excuse me. But, as you're hearing these conversations from our Lethal Means Advisory Group, thinking about like, if you're interested in joining that group, you are welcome to do so. So, and there's, the LGBTQ advisory group, and there's a lot of other opportunities for folks, but, hearing from Donna Marie and Pam about what's happening in the amazing group, the Lethal Means Advisory Group, that is just, a drop in the bucket as to what's happening in all the various committees and advisory groups within the Alliance. So Lethal Means might have got a leg up because you all gave this amazing presentation today. You might have a ton of people wanting to be a part of Lethal Means Advisory Group, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for your time today. I really appreciate each and every one of you and all the amazing work that you're doing, because it takes all of us. And I know that this presentation was a heavy one. I always feel like I'm the Debbie Downer whenever I go into a room, but thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. It helps us continue with the heaviness.
Donna Marie and Pam and all the other folks that are involved in the Lethal Means Advisory Group, thank you for the work, the amazing work that you're doing. None of this work is easy, but this work is particularly difficult. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing and providing us such a wonderful overview of the work that you have done and the work that we still have ahead of us. So I'm going to make an executive decision, and I'm going to ask that we take a break. Don't go anywhere yet. We're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back and do the survey. I think given the presentation that we just had, Jen, is that okay? Am I going to ruin your?
totally up to you, and then whatever Annette thinks as well. We had put it right before the break, so that way if it takes longer for folks, they can use part of the break time to do it. It should take about 15 minutes, which is what we have allotted in the schedule. So it really, so either one.
How about we do this? How about you put the survey, why don't you just explain briefly about the survey, Jen, and then people can access it, but I think I'm gonna ask that we do a break first, just to allow people to breathe and get some coffee, take a bio break, do some stretching. Charlotte, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just really quick, since we've been on the topic of lethal means, I put in the chat as well. Oregon has worked really hard to adapt the national program to be an Oregon-specific counseling on access to lethal means, and it sounds like it's going to be added to the Big River, which is super exciting. But we have a training actually that's coming up for that. If anyone is interested in learning more about that, I've put the information in the chat for you. It's a virtual training, so it does still leave that flexibility. I just wanted you all to know that. It's pretty cool. It's specific data to Oregon. It's a lot of reference to our rural communities. And
all right, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Charlotte, very much.
Do you want me to put 30? Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, do we want OHA, our OHA colleagues to complete the survey, Jen?
Everybody except for when Annette and I talked about it, we were just thinking maybe not our contract administrators, just because that might be a little bit weird, but other OHA folks totally feel free to do so. So yes, Deb, you're free to, yeah.
Okay, so in the chat is a survey. If you would like to do that now, great, but I would encourage you to take a break. We will be taking let's take a 15-minute break. So please come back at, let's do 11:17. We will start promptly at 11:17. Please take care of yourself, take some deep breaths. We appreciate you being here today, and we'll see you in 15 minutes at 11:17.
And that you're muted.
Yeah, I just stayed on in case there was anyone who needed to check in.
I do not have anything to, I was just planning on sticking around just in case folks had questions with the survey or anything, but no, I don't have anything else, I don't think.
Okay, and it looks like Gallia.
Are we on break? Is that what happened?
Yeah,
yes.
We're on break, Laura Rose.
Okay.
And if you want to start the survey now, you can.
For those of you who did not take the survey, I'm in the middle of it right now. We're going to take another 10 minutes to take the survey. If you have already taken the survey, then you have a longer break. We purposely carved out time in our meeting to take the survey just so we could get as many responses as is possible. We recognize you all are incredibly busy, and sending out an email isn't always the best way to get people to take a survey, because people prioritize their time, and we understand that. So thanks to the 13 folks who have already done the survey, and we're going to take 10 more minutes. So 11:28, we're going to keep doing the survey. Again, if you've already done it, feel free to stretch and breathe.
And I'll just add, Galli, that the purpose of the survey, it's part of our contract that we annually have the survey, but it's also, we really want to use it as a way of us understanding how you're experiencing our work with the Alliance, and use for kind of quality improvement, and to lean into things that we're doing well. So thank you.
talking about the recording in progress. Talking about the co-chair process. So the Alliance, the way the Alliance is structured is that there is a chair and a co-chair. I am sitting in the chair position and Ryan Price is sitting in the co-chair position. Ryan, due to him being an incredibly busy human, is not going to be able to step into the chair role. Typically, what ends up happening is that the co-chair has to be voted in, but typically the co-chair steps into the chair role of the Alliance, and then a new co-chair comes in and kind of gets to learn how things go for the 2-year time commitment, and then they step into the chair role. So Ryan will not be stepping into the chair role because of his other commitments and his other busy life, which means that we are needing nominations for the co-chair for the Alliance. We currently have one nomination, that is for Charlotte Lumby. And we are looking for other nominations to be in the position of co-chair. Again, this position is for 2 years. We will vote on this in September in our quarterly meeting in September. So we as a group have between now and Annette, when do you need nominations to come forward to folks? When's the latest people can get those to us?
I would say by the end of July, because we'll need to discuss in the August executive committee. And the other thing is that an executive, to be nominated, you need to have a sponsor from the executive. And so.
Say more about what that means, Annette, a sponsor.
Yeah, the nominations need to be proposed by a member of the executive, and our nominations are our chairs. Our one requirement is that you've been actively engaged with one of our committees. The chair is an incredibly important position, as I'm sure you can tell from how Gally's managing this meeting, and it's very exciting. It's members who are able to nominate a chair. Thank you, Julie, for that clarifying question. Yes, so if you're a voting member, you can nominate. We have the list of the members of our executive on board. If you're not on our executive, you could talk, if there's somebody you're wanting to nominate who's not working as part of our executive, you could talk to somebody from our executive about sponsoring that nomination.
And again, ideally, the person would be able to, the person who's in the co-chair would spend 2 years in the co-chair role, and then ideally spend 2 years in the chair role. So it really is essentially a commitment of 4 years. And again, voting members get to decide, obviously, who is in the chair role, but it really, it is a big commitment. All right, and Jen has put in the chat, more information about sponsorship from the executive committee. Okay, so think about nominations for co-chair and get them into Annette or Jen by the end of July, if not before, if you are a voting member. All right, next up is, so Dr. Wolf was saying a commitment of 4 years may be too long. Well, it's not a commitment of 4 years, it's a commitment of 2 years, but the way that we've been doing it organically has been that the co-chair has been learning the ropes and then sliding and being voted into the position of chair. So it really is a commitment of 2 years, but it comes with a 2-year added signing bonus for 4 years, typically. It's a very well-paying job.
Oh, Gally, this is Julie, just for clarification. It doesn't go co-chair for 1 year and then step into primary chair. It's 2 years as co-chair.
Correct.
And then stepping in for a 2-year as chair.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, everything has to be voted on, so it's not an automatic, right? So David Westbrook was chair, I was co-chair. When David's term was up as chair, you all voted me in as chair.
And you had already been co-chair for 2 years.
Yeah.
Thank you for your enormous service. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you all are an amazing group to be with. So again, the signing bonus is amazing. So you should come and work with us. All right, moving on to policy agenda for 22-25, folks. This is a really important discussion. Again, we've received lots of feedback from you and from other folks. So thank you for being a part of these ongoing conversations. This is important. And Annette, I'm going to let you lead this conversation about, again, determining our policy agenda for the 22-25, basically.
Thanks, Gally. So I just want to remind folks a little bit about the process that we've been through. We gathered information from all of our committees. We also sent out an email to everybody connected with the Alliance to ask for policy ideas. We spent quite a bit of time vetting the various policy ideas and hearing feedback from the full Alliance. It went to the executive. The executive took about 20 ideas and narrowed to the ones that they felt were their highest priorities for now. And we've also done two policy chats. So about 70 folks attended those policy chats to learn more about these policy issues. All that is as preface for why I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. I'm just giving an overview of what we have in the policy agenda. So there will be time for conversation afterwards. As a reminder, the way we set up our policy agendas is modeled on what the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention does. So some issues we agree to take the lead on, and really these ones where we take a lead are always the heaviest lift. There's a lot of work. Some of them we are collaborating with because there's someone else that makes more sense to be the leader on it, or it's something we don't have the bandwidth with, or that really we know there needs to be a high level of collaboration to move forward. And those that we're exploring, these are things that we think are really important. They need more exploration, but including them in the policy agenda is an indication that we know this is an important area. Next slide. Just very briefly, I want to mention that as we think about what our policy priorities are, we try to really align both with the YSIP, the Youth Suicide Intervention and Prevention Plan, which is based on the Center for Disease Control Suicide Prevention Strategies, which are these key strategies: strengthen economic supports, access and delivery of suicide care, creating protective environments, connectedness, teaching coping and problem-solving skills, and identifying and supporting people at risk. And I just will acknowledge that the ones that I've highlighted here are ones that are either part of our policy agenda, things that we're working on as an alliance. The one area where we don't have anything right now is in the strengthen economic supports. And it's not that we don't think it's important, but I think it's been a bandwidth issue around addressing those issues. So that's, as you look at the policy proposals, they align in one way or another with these. Next slide, please. So this looks different on your slides than what you have in your notes, but let me just say it's the exact same language that you received a week ahead of the meeting that said the draft policy agenda. So just as a reminder, we're not going to be voting on these two today, but they're a very kind of significant part of the ongoing work that we're doing. The first one is we have committed to continuing to work in expanding how medical providers and the behavioral health workforce is trained to ensure people get the right kind of support when they need it. And that workforce committee is working very actively on both the legislation we got passed, which is House Bill 2315, and on pushing through more legislation and approaches to supporting medical providers. The second thing that we already voted on as an alliance was to recommend that the alliance's scope is expanded beyond ages 5 to 24 to lifespan. And we also asked OHA if we also advocated for OHA to fund the adult suicide intervention plan. We're not doing, we don't really have a formal response from OHA on this yet, although we do know that they are planning on including the adult plan in their policy option package. But so these are existing policy commitments. We're not going to vote on them today, but they are significant pieces of work for us moving forward. Next slide. So along with leading on those two issues, we also really want to continue to lead around data. We don't have a specific legislative ask around this, but we are looking at the issue of having data that is meaningful, that local suicide prevention coordinators and coalitions can use to actually help shape their plans, and also for us to really be able to understand at a more specific level what is happening in a whole variety of communities. Our data and evaluation committee are working on this. I mostly at this point just in close collaboration with OHA and OHA's public health and their work around data. Next slide. There's a number of issues we're looking at collaborating on around training. One of them is really emphasizing the need for equity-centered content in training. Again, policy is both legislative and it's also moves forward in a number of different ways. We know that there is not a huge number of equity-centered suicide prevention training so far at this point, but we really want to either help develop or promote those approaches, and we're asking for that. Regarding lethal means, Donna Marie did a really lovely job of describing the work around the firearms storage laws and Good Samaritan clause. We really are wanting there to be no obstacles to somebody helping somebody in a situation where somebody's in a high risk and you can offer to store their guns temporarily for them. And there's been a lot of concern from gun owners about liability. And so we're really we're looking at how to address that. The next piece, which you also heard a little bit about today, is really working to strengthen state legal protections for LGBTQIA, 2S youth, especially transgender youth who've been targeted by discriminatory legislation. Final one on collaboration is looking at the issue of student IDs. And I think this is one that we aren't sure if at some point this might become a legislative ask or if there's better ways to approach, so we need to keep exploring it. But the basic idea is we want every student in the state to have easily accessible to them at all times the key helpline, chat lines. And moving forward at some point, those will probably really be connected to 988. So both the schools committee and our transitions of care committee might have a role in that. Next slide. The items that we really are looking at exploring further and figuring out really what our role and approach will be, but we know it's of high importance to suicide prevention. The first is around this emerging 988 and mobile response efforts that are happening across the state. We do have Laura Rose, who will be officially part of an advisory committee that OHA is standing up for this. And so she will participate from her perspective and as the Alliance. I think one of the legislative issues that might come up this session is there might be an ask for a phone tax to support these efforts. And so voting support for this allows us to respond in real time to what's happening at a legislative level. The second two areas for exploring are around training. And these two proposals were very specific. One was require regular youth suicide prevention training in schools, 6th grade through 12th grade. And what the executive committee came to with this is we really want to explore this further to figure out, is training the best way, or is there any other approach that we want to have, but we, such as lean into, say, some kind of mental health promotion, et cetera. But we really do want to take a look at being sure that 6th graders through 12th graders, which is the highest risk ages for our young people, that they are getting resources and training in school. And this final one really came from one of our youth. And this is asking specifically for hospital staff, especially those in emergency departments, to receive training in suicide prevention, intervention, assessment, treatment, and management. And this connects to our current commitment to further training for medical providers through CMEs, continuing medical education, but would expand it to even thinking about things like the security person, et cetera. And so this is an area that we would like to explore and look at and support. And I think I said each of these as though I'm the one promoting it. And I just want to be clear that these are the ideas that rose to the top, that the executive committee said, let's make this our policy agenda that we focus on for the next year and beyond. So that at a high level are the issues that came forward. Next slide. So I want to pass to Gally now to kind of lead our discussion comments and from the group about the policy agenda. And our thought is, if there's not too much, we could accept this as a slate. And if we find there's some of these items that there's a lot of controversy about, rather than in a short time to rush through the conversation, what we'd like to do is highlight those items where we really don't have a consensus around and continue some discussion about them in future quarterly meetings. So,
right, to Annette's point, we will be voting on these today. Again, for those of you who are eligible to vote, and again, many of you will be eligible to vote very, very soon. But if you are a voting member, which means you've received a letter from Oregon Health Authority appointing you to the Alliance, we'll be voting on these today. But let's first have a discussion about the policy ideas. So up on the screen, obviously, these are prompts for us, but are there areas, are there any of these that folks feel like they would be really excited to work on? Kimberly, I see your hand.
I am so sorry to be a wet blanket.
Wet blanket, that's okay.
I am a member of another national suicide prevention advisory committee. And last night received an email that was concerning nationally, not so much here, because I worked very closely with David Westbrook a couple of months ago and was assured of Line for Life's policy, privacy policy, regarding selling data, crisis line data. And it's like Lines for Life was like, oh, hell no, we don't do that. But before we move forward with recommending 988 on the backs of student ID cards, we need to confirm with Lines for Life whether they track location of the calling phone number. And if they do not, we need to promote that to various coalitions, to behavioral health providers, to schools, to assure our students that, you know what, privacy in Oregon is not a concern. Or yes, under these circumstances, we can pull up your location. I just feel that if we are transparent, we're more likely to garner the trust of people who will use the line. Whereas if we don't do anything and this recent concern continues to receive media attention, people are gonna not reach out for help. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Kimberly. Thank you for, is Leslie Golden in the room today? Leslie is head of security at Lines for Life and an executive member. I don't know that she's here.
I haven't seen her name on the thing
Okay, I don't think she's here today. She may be able to answer that question quickly, but you raise a really good point. Laura Rose, and you're not
Also,
blanket, Kimberly. That's good.
Also,
Sorry.
that's okay. I was just going to say also to Kimberly's point, you know, I echo many in the community have been expressing a lot of concern around geolocation, and it's not necessarily a simple issue for all people. There can be all kinds of extra risks that happen when it's undertaken. You know, it's used as the opportunity to go intervene depending on what the circumstance is. There's a lot of huge consequences, a lot of things that can go wrong in the process. People end up losing sometimes their parental rights for their children. Things end up happening even with the best of intentions, you know. So anyway, there's a lot to that topic. And I know that there's been some meetings nationally with like FCC, the Federal Communications, and others, you know, what is the extent that this is necessary, part of, you know, greater issues of law enforcement, national security, and other kinds of topics. And so it is a very hot issue. One thing I'll point out that I appreciated that there was some language in the Trans Lifeline webpage that at least warned people, you know, here's these numbers. If you need them for support, you know, they're there. But they did add language about non-consensual active rescue. So it might be something, you know, worth having further conversation about. Helping people make informed decisions, I think, is a really good principle. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Rose. And so again, Kimberly and Laura Rose are raising concerns around under Collaborate, protective environment, student IDs, and both helpline and crisis text line on them, which is what we're talking about. Other thoughts about any of these questions? We don't have to be linear. You know, what are you excited to work on? What do you have concerns about? Are there existing efforts that you know of that are already working on these?
I'm interested in the suicide education / training, whatever you want to call it. I know that in my Salem health position, which will continue even though I'm transitioning out of that, that's primarily what the injury prevention does there. Is they spend a lot of time in K through 12. I developed a self-care and suicide prevention presentation for youth specifically a few years ago, and even during the pandemic reached, I think, over 4,000 youth in Marion County. So that happens right now through the teachers, and it's not mainstreamed, but I know after being in a meeting with the Sean today, they're kind of looking, or I think they've been looking for a long time, how to try to mainstream some of that stuff. So long story short, I think there is stuff out there that's happening. I don't think it's being consistently done. It's more through relationships that have been developed with health teachers over the years. But I also think it opens the door in the avenue, path, however you want to say it, to possibly look at making something like that more consistent and dependable.
If I can bring up quickly, just as someone who works in the schools, I think having a best practice curriculum that's approved for middle school, other than the SOS program, which can be very or cost restrictive for a lot of schools. So I know there's nothing elementary wise. I think there's only one middle school wise that's approved. So how to get that out there so that the schools can have best practices when they are presenting this, and we can, you know, all the curriculum needs to be approved by boards. So it's hard getting anything through that's not a best practice and approved out there.
I completely agree. I think that's a good point. And You know, I know it's going to be different for every school in the state. Are you located in Marion County, Mary?
I'm in Washington County.
Oh, Washington County. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
There's some stuff happening in the chat just to draw people's attention to that too. Sandy.
Oh, hi. Sandy Mathewson, Mental Health Safety and Prevention Specialist at, excuse me, Clackamas CSD. I know I'm not a voting member, but I'm
Doesn't
very
matter. Your feedback is valued, so doesn't matter that you're not a voting member.
okay. One of my jobs is to work with the 10 school districts in our county, specifically around suicide prevention. So I would love to be a resource or even just listen in on the conversations, and just wanted to put my name out there. Thank you.
Other thoughts about what we're suggesting that we want to lead on, collaborate on, and explore? Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to point out that I have a concern about, whether it's founded or not, it's at least highly informed because of my involvement. For the transitions of care, I want us to be clear that 988 and the possibility of then having a referral for mobile response and stabilization services, which would be similar to the CATS program, but really not identical. I want to make sure that we're clear that there may not be a focus on the transition out of mobile response and stabilization services as there is in CATS. It's something I'm advocating strongly for, and a variety of people who have been involved with CATS is advocating for, and we'll know more when we get through the rules making process by the end of this month. But there's a strong concern that I have with MRSS that we must focus on transition out of that short term. So as it's listed in our policy discussion here, that it is a bridge stabilization, temporary stabilization and support service that aims to both meet the acute present need as well as connect folks to aftercare and ongoing care, regardless of their insurance. And so I just want to put a strong comment out that's something that we need to add and not take for granted that it's going to be exactly like CATS, but that it's going to be CATS-like. And CATS, one of the most essential parts of it was the T for transition services.
Julie, can you, in like 2 sentences, explain what CATS is to folks who may not know?
Crisis and Transition Services is a bridge service, and it doesn't exist in every county, but it piloted and then was a program for about 6 years. It stands for Crisis and Transition Services. The referral into it, the access to it, was if a youth is in an emergency department. So an emergency department or crisis care center could refer youth and their families into this program that would take place then in the community for 30, 60, 90 days based on the need. And they would provide in some therapy, individual therapy, family therapy, psychiatry, assessment, and barrier busting, family peer support, and some sites youth peer support. And so it has been a highly successful, statistically and data speaking, highly successful service, but it's being subsumed, so to speak, into the MRSS in the 988 crisis response system.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. It's an amazing program. Other questions or concerns or feedback? Again, the goal at the end of this conversation is that we will be voting on the policy agenda. So if we're not going to vote it in as a whole, which we do not have to, then we will pull out certain pieces. And what we're going to ask though is if we pull out certain pieces, because we're not ready to pass them today, is that people who are suggesting that we pull those certain pieces come up with a suggestion about reworking that, or you know, a proposed solution. Other questions, thoughts? I will say that I am really, really excited about the data piece, and us basically leading on the improving our data collection. As a post-vention lead in Clackamas County, I can tell you that even our own medical examiner, who is quite lovely and an amazing champion for this work, does not ask the questions that we need to better understand the story of how our young people are dying, including getting race and ethnicity wrong, because they don't ask.
Gally, just one other comment on the policy agenda. There were ideas submitted that didn't make it, and a number of those were around postvention. And let me say that this data proposal, even though the word postvention isn't in it, very much aligns with the kinds of ideas that folks are talking about, like at some point look at funding for more psychological autopsies, that kind of thing. And so in the future, we may want to look further at that.
Are folks ready to vote?
This is Kimberly. I would like to propose that we hold off for now and dig a little deeper on the whole 988 thing. Everything else, I think we could move forward with.
Okay, so Kimberly is proposing that under collaborate that we remove for now protective environment student ID to both helpline and crisis text line. I am seeing in the chat. Yeah, Jen, can you put back on the screen what we're voting on? I know it's hard because it's not all on one page, I don't believe.
Well, if I just left up, since transitions of fees, the 981 seems to be the one that there's most discussion about. Is it okay to leave this one up? This slide, or do you?
Excuse me, yes, the transition of care. Yeah, what do folks think? What do you need to be able to have a discussion and a vote? Laura Rose, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I don't fully understand it just yet. I don't know why I'm having a gap, but I feel like we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, can we separate? You're talking about the student IEDs, but there's more here involved in transitions of care than just the student ID issue.
Thank you, Laura Rose. Yes. Yes, so we're talking about two under explore, there's the transitions of care piece, and then under collaborate, there's the protected environments piece that we're talking about that have kind of gotten mixed together, is my understanding, although correct me if I'm wrong, folks.
I feel like that's an accurate representation.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. I'm hearing concern about the training piece under collaborate, which no, wait. The
Hey,
transit.
Gally, it's a little bit unclear. So are we voting to pursue collaborations in these 4 areas and explorations in the next slide in those 3 areas? What are we actually voting on?
My understanding, Annette and Jen, please help me. My understanding is that we were voting on these as a package, lead, collaborate, explore, as our policy agenda for 22-25.
And by
one singular pop, is that right? One singular pop?
Yes, one singular pop or not, but yes, one singular. Yes, one singular package.
It's a little bit unclear what the action is. Like, explore as an action is pretty open-ended, and I don't know what the outcome of that. Collaborate, like what, I'm a little unclear on the action, on the verbs in this categories.
No, my guess is that if you're feeling that way, then other people are feeling that way too. So thank you for that feedback.
I have the definitions up on the screen, how we've defined them so far. So from the last time that we voted on our policies last year, we used these same definitions, and these are the ones that we've continued to use. So lead are the ones that we as an alliance will play a leadership role in. Examples by our leadership role would be developing the policy position, getting support, and also generating advocacy activity. The ones that we collaborate on would be ones that we as an alliance would work as part of a coalition or group, providing, and things that we would do in that role is like providing active support to achieve the policy objectives. Previous groups that we've collaborated on different policy issues include Basic Rights Oregon on Addie's Act, I believe, if that's correct. If not, then ignore that if that was wrong. The third area that we could do as an action is explore. And these are issues that are rising in importance that members have brought to our attention and require further exploration or policy research and analysis, but haven't become an active policy proposal because we as an alliance and as a group want to see what exactly our role should be and how we want to advocate to affect change on that specific area. So these are the definitions we've been using.
This is really helpful, Jen. Thank you for bringing this back up and letting us
no worries.
process it.
Julie, thank you for your question. Jen, for quickly responding. That's great.
And so secondary question, and hopefully this is others as well, have this as well. So in the bullets that are under each of those different categories, these are, somebody put them in these categories, and it sounds to me like there might be at least on the one for putting the student IDs could be under a different category than it is. I can't even remember where it was.
It's under collaborate, under protective environments. Student IDs have both helpline and crisis text line under collaborate.
Okay, I see that now. I mean, one potential is that gets moved to explore if folks are uncomfortable voting on it as a part of collaborate. That would be one suggestion. And I think this was super helpful putting it on one screen. Thank you so much.
Charlotte, go ahead.
I think it's important too to think about stuff like this when we're looking at student IDs, helplines, crisis text lines, all of these different items. And we continue to have movement throughout the state on what those resources are. And then we look at our role as doing something like leading, collaborating, or exploring. When you're in collaboration, that allows you to have a voice to make sure that you can help that occur in what is a safe way. And so for myself anyways, I would hesitate to vote that away. Those are things that I think a lot of us probably, I'm not going to assume for all of us, but a lot of us would probably like to see those resources available. So maybe it's taken into consideration that as we look forward to moving policies forward, that in those roles where we're doing leading or collaborating, we really have an opportunity as members and non-members of the Alliance, all of us that are working together at the table, to have a voice in those things.
Great point, Charlotte. Okay, so there are three options as I see them based on what you all have said. Vote on this entire package. Pull things out that we're not ready to vote on for whatever reason, and vote on the rest of the things that we are ready to vote on. Or go vote on each of these as separate entities. Those are the options as I see them. Gordon.
Yes. I don't see withdrawing something. I think if you withdraw something, you vote on that separately, not just assume that because a couple of people have spoken about the situation that we're going to automatically drop that off. I think every point needs to be voted on. I'd love to see the group voted together and then the crisis line separated, if that works for people. And when we separate the crisis line issue, it should include all crisis lines, just not a specific one, because we've got to understand if we recommend any of them, Lines for Life, the VA crisis text line, any text line, they ought to follow the same thing, including 998 or 988 text line. So not just cherry picking one crisis line on something that they did 2 years ago, they haven't done since. And they actually do active rescue, and considerably more than the 1% I saw in the chat. And save lives.
So Annette and Jen, will you give me some guidance on how you think that we should proceed?
I think that Gordon's suggestion of voting on the package, but pulling out the ID issue, which seems to be the one, and voting separately on that is a good suggestion to keep us moving forward.
Laura Rose, your hands up.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's helpful to kind of see if people feel like that's a deal breaker, not like a quick, yes, no, or maybe. And, then decide if it's even needing to be taken out. Just because we, raised some concerns about it being under collaboration would still be getting attention, doesn't mean it's an absolute follow through. So
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Charlotte.
I was just going to say, I actually really liked your idea. So if it's possible to number those 3 options in the chat. So 1, vote on entire packet. Yep, just like that. Thank you, Jen. And then that way, as a group, we could just quickly vote on it in chat. And then, as Annette said, move forward with that process. That would be my proposal.
Okay, folks.
And I did many chats ago put who can vote, so I will put that again so it's easy access for people, so that way you can all see who can do the thing.
Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we have 3 options. Option 1 is vote on the entire package. Option 2, pull things out. So we're going to be voting on these options. So option 1, vote on the entire package. Option 2, pull things out that we're not ready to vote on and vote on the rest of the things. Option 3, vote on each of the items as separate items. So what I'm going to ask you to do is in the chat, for the people who have received letters from Oregon Health Authority as appointed members of the Alliance, please use the chat to vote on, so just basically, just say 1, 2, or 3. And then we will, Jen and Annette will be doing math and we'll go from there.
Just to keep you like with an updated live thing, so far option 1 is winning, which was just to vote on the entire package. Unless like everybody else on the active like who can vote list like goes for something else, I feel like that's going to win with the number of votes that we have.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Are we waiting on anyone else to vote? Justin, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, maybe I missed it, Kelly, but I had heard somewhere along the line a proposal to amend the language and move it. Would that be on the table before or after the vote for the entire package?
Well, if we're talking about amending something and moving it, we are.
That's option 2.
That was option 2. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Thank you, whoever just chimed in. I'm going to give just another 30 seconds for folks who are still thinking on option 1, 2, or 3.
I just put that in for, I don't know, Linda, how detailed with the minutes, but I just put that for you. But
Thank you.
form with our bylaws, option 1, which was, oh gosh, to vote on everything as one package.
Yes.
Is the one that wins.
Okay, folks. All right, thank you. So thank you for doing that. Now we are going to vote on the whole package. So thanks for your patience on this, folks. So is there a motion? Can there be a motion on the floor to accept the package that is on the screen here as our policy agenda for 22-25?
Gordon Clay, so moved.
Thank you, Gordon. Is there a second?
Julie Major, second.
Thank you, Julie. Okay. So the best way to do this is via the chat because not everyone has access to their microphones. So again, voting members, please yay or nay or abstain if you wish in the chat.
I was going to try and spell unanimous in the chat. I could say it, can't spell it. So unanimously it passes. So that's that.
Thank you, as always, Jen and Annette behind the scenes for doing the math and dealing if we, figuring out if we have quorum and all the things. So thank you for that. It's incredibly helpful. All right, congratulations, folks. We have just passed our 22-25 policy agenda for the Alliance. Thank you for all of the work that has gone into this. And again, remember, none of this stuff is set in like the details of how this gets worked out. We have an influence over. So remember that is, none of this is going to get ahead of us. We have an influence over this. Nice work, folks. All right. We are going to spend the last part of our meeting today. Each committee and the committee chairs are and advisory groups are gonna break out into small groups, and they're gonna have their own breakout rooms, giving our new members and veteran members too, if you wanna just, get yourself refamiliarized, to visit. It's kind of like speed dating, folks. You get to visit all these different rooms and check in to see what is of interest to you. So, Jen, will you explain a little bit about the breakout rooms and how that might work?
Yes. So let me, sorry, I'm doing.
And Jen, while you're figuring that out, we will not be coming back as a large group to this meeting. So if you are not a new member or if you need to run, I'm going to say a few words before you go, but we will not be coming back as a large group. Jen, let me know when you're ready to explain, and then I'll just say my piece before people go.
Yeah, so there will be the six groups that are listed on the screen right there are going to have open houses. And actually, Annette, are you okay? Because I was going to try and type and do things while explaining, but
yeah, I'd like to.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had envisioned people jumping from room to room. I'm thinking with the amount of time left, it may be that just to choose one room to visit will be an easier process for us. These are the committees and advisory groups that we have available. And if you are already participating in one of these and are interested in being part of sharing and helping to recruit and gain excitement in that committee, please join that room. You're part of the conversation along with the chair. However, if you're a part of a committee, but you've always wanted to learn more about another one of the groups, please come to that. We will assign, so Jen, I believe, is putting the names of each of the groups into the rooms, and you can choose that room with that name and enter that, and we'll spend the last part of the meeting with that. And Gally, I just want to make a very brief announcement before I go, which is that very excited to say the Oregon Health Authority has issued a significant portion of funding that will get administered through AOCMHP and the Alliance to provide grants to to local suicide prevention coalitions. And my specific ask of you is we really want to do this in a low barrier way that makes sense for coalitions and also supports the work of the YSIP. If you are particularly interested in being part of that discussion or part of a coalition, please let me know, and I will be checking in with you about that. And Jen, did I explain that right about how people can figure out the rooms to go to?
Yeah, the only people that I've assigned are the folks from the specific committees or advisory groups for the rooms that you're going to lead. So you don't get a choice where you get to go. Everybody else, you get a choice of where you get to go. And I did email out the Jamboard links this morning, but do you all want me to put those links again in the chat really quick before we head out?
That would be helpful. And I can say my piece while you're doing that, Jen.
Sweet.
Jen, while I'm looking at the breakout rooms, it's not showing that though. It's showing like.
Oh, I haven't opened it yet.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yes.
So I always do like just a little goodbye before we sign off. So I'm going to do that now. I just wanted to again be really intentional about recognizing our new members. Really thankful that you're here. You're going to hear me say that a lot. We cannot do this work without you. So thank you for joining this group. And for those of you who have been around for a minute, we as a leadership team and me as a chair greatly appreciate you and all of the work that you put into this work, both within these meetings, in your committees, in your advisory groups, and in your own personal and professional lives. I recognize that this world is a really tough place right now. It has been for quite some time. It has been more so lately, it feels, and this group brings me tremendous, tremendous hope. So thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for, doing your speed dating in our committees and advisory. We appreciate you. And we will see you next time when we meet in 3 months.
So, hey, Gally, that was perfect timing. All of the Jamboards are in the chat. People who are leading the rooms, I have made you co-hosts. You should be able to share your screens. I just ask when you leave at the end, don't end meeting for all, because sometimes Annette and I stick around to talk, and if you end meeting for all, that would make me sad. So don't do that. Just leave yourself. And if you have any issues, I will be in this larger room. And yeah, I think that's it. So I will go ahead and open them up and have fun speed dating.
Jen, I think I don't understand how to get into that group. I hit the Jamboard, but what takes me in there?
Oh, go ahead, Gally. Were you gonna?
No, I'm gonna try and answer Julie's question, but I don't know the answer necessarily.
So so I think that once I hit open rooms, there should have been a little thing that popped up that said join breakout room. So it won't be in the chat. It should just be something else that popped up separately.
Julie, go down to breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen.
Got it.
Click on that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Take care, folks.
If anybody's left in the room though that needs help, I just realized that I could also assign you. So if you let me know where you want to go, I can shove you there.
I'm having trouble, Jen, for lethal means.
Yep, I will put you there, Gordon.
Casey, where do you want to be?
Yeah, lethal means, and when you hit the Jamboard, it only shows the slides.
Oh, okay. Jen, can you put Casey in lethal means too, please?
Yep, I just assigned.
Perfect.
This is Sisha. Can you put me in equity, please?
You got it, Sisha. Perfect.
There you go.
Justin, where do you want to be?
I totally missed all the instruction because the teacher came in and that I needed to talk to, and I was like, and I was trying to listen in on Park side, and then I was paying attention to my teacher, and I just didn't catch it. So we were just sort of joining whichever group of those where there are new folks.
Yeah. So what committee are you on? Are you on schools normally?
Schools, yeah.
So it would make sense for you to be in schools unless you want to learn, about what another committee is doing.
Data and eval only has John in it right now, just saying, if you want to learn more about data and eval, he's all by himself.
Yeah. Send me over to, I'll go over to John.
Okay.
Data eval, just for kicks.
Yeah.
All right, folks, I'm going to sign off. Jen, do you need anything from me?
No, do you have anything that you would like to share about anything? Okay, cool. Well, thank you so
No.
much for all that you do.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Chat with you soon. Okay.
Yeah,
All
have a
right.
good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye, folks.
Great job, Gally.
Oh, I can stop.